Hi, Pam here, founder of Tilt365. For this final short mini course, I want to explain the result that happens after time when a company or culture or team has been using the Tilt framework for a while. And we call this the behavior of intentional tilting. And it has certain benefits that we want to share with you in this short mini course. So one of the things that we teach is that the formula for achieving 4 specific kinds of outcomes is to be balanced in all 4 of the tilt patterns. So in other words, having the ability to shift into a set of behaviors that accomplish having balance all the way around and actually polarity, non-dualistic thinkings that makes you agile and produces the 12 agilities, but also pairing that with an intentional tilt into a certain set of behaviors that produce a specific outcome. And those 4 different outcomes are going to be necessary at different stages of development in a team's culture and also at different times depending on what their objectives are. Those 4 outcomes of tilting to context are collaboration. We need to tilt to connection, the tilt pattern, the connection for cross-pollination whenever we're trying to collaborate or partner. And that set of behaviors looks like being open, being approachable, going out and researching and shaking hands and talking to people about, what might need to happen next, what kind of trends are unfolding, what are the possibilities, what do we need to learn, and making decisions collaboratively so that you end up with better thinking because of the multiple perspectives and inclusive nature of systems, human systems. And also brainstorming is there. For innovation, it's a very different set of behaviors. You have to move faster, you have to break down barriers, you have to fail fast and learn quickly, plow through obstacles, break down doors and barriers, think much bigger about the future, be futuristic, and introduce kind of game-changing, disruptive ideas. And this actually is more conducive to a smaller team than collaboration is. Very important set of behaviors that produce a very different outcome. And then execution requires kind of a narrowing of perspective and, deciding and planning and, anchoring yourself in a specific time-boxed period of time where you know the plan, you have the specs, and you're ready to architect the plan and prioritize it and be accountable for building and executing. So this is about scaling systems. It's about using resources efficiently, delivering high-quality products, and all of it, requires kind of a heads down, everybody with their sleeves rolled up and everybody focused on execution, which, if you look at the juxtaposition of collaboration where you're open, it's very different. It's actually the opposite. So when you're in execution mode, you're not going to be open to new possibilities and learning from emergent trends and so forth. It's the time to execute. So it requires a different set of behaviors. Same thing with alignment. You want to align before you move to innovation. So you want to be able to think about the processes, understand the metrics that are going to lead you to your vision, analyze the risks and trade-offs, make contingency plans, build those processes, provision the resources, and analyze the data that would guide decisions, making sure everybody's views have been considered and looped in. And when you have alignment, only then are you really ready to go up to innovation and move forward with it or move to execution and go forward with that. But alignment requires patience and doing your homework and digging in and researching and checking out different perspectives and troubleshooting different paths forward. So it's a very different set of behaviors, and alignment can happen more cross broadly, and we see it as integration and cross thinking, um, matrix thinking, etc. So all you can imagine, all four of these are very different. Some people are better at one than the other, and some teams are better at one than the others. Um, but they also need to be very intentional, and that's the difference that we see is that teams need to be able to swiftly move into a certain set of behaviors intentionally and have a common language for being able to describe that. And there's some major benefits to doing this. So, for example, if I say to my team, hey, we're moving into structure or moving into execution mode, they automatically know that I'm going to be heads down. Everybody's going to be heads down. We're not going to consider new ideas. We're going to just move forward until we get to the end line and produce a product, and get it ready to be able to test it. So one of the most important things that happens here is the communication is simple when you learn these four patterns. The communication is, hey, we're all going to go tilt to structure for the next sprint, or we're going to all go tilt to structure for the next quarter. And everybody automatically knows, oh, well, okay, that means that Pam's not going to be as open to brainstorming for this period of time, or she's going to seem kind of, more sharp and more, decisive and not as approachable. So it kind of makes them feel better to know that, oh, well, that's where she's headed, and she's setting the example for that. So I shouldn't, get my feelings hurt if she says, no, we're not going to consider new ideas right now. We're not going to change our plans. We've got to execute against the plan we have. So that's the biggest benefit, is that it doesn't, when you have this common language, you're not worried about loss of approval or loss of status or loss of power or loss of freedom, because you understand why the team leader is shifting the behavior into a different set of patterns. And this little cheat sheet here, we call intentional tilting as a team, serves as a guide or a downloadable resource that the team can look at to kind of go, oh, well, this is what I need to expect when, Pam is shifting into an intentional tilt to structure. Same thing if we're going to go up to connection, and we're going to go connect with all of our partners and our customers, and we're going to be open to learning and brainstorm and look at the trends that are happening. We're going to go also maybe go to alignment and check out resources and analyze different ways forward. But it is very, very useful for a team to just know, here's where we're headed. Here are the behaviors that go along with that. Let's stay there until we accomplish that outcome. Very, very powerful. And then we have a tool that we call the Team Climate Profile that also tells us from all the personalities of the team, like how the team is naturally predisposed. So this one, you can see this team is naturally predisposed to impact. So they are absolutely a team that is able to advance and compete better than most, and are usually interested in constrained resources, short time frames, and the ability to just go out there and test something and ship it and see what happens. So this is one of the four aspects of Agile, that when we're in that mode, we need to actually be fast and fail fast and be okay with mistakes and pivot. So this is a team that's probably very entrepreneurial and a really good fit for a startup type of culture, which other teams would be very different than this. You might have a team that tilts to clarity. So that would be a great research and analysis team, or a team that tilts to structure. That's a great team to go build stuff and, build architect plans and execute against those. And then there are teams that are really naturally good at collaborating and partnering, and being inclusive. So it's fun to have a diagnostic to be able to see this team is predisposed to being impact, but they also need to know when it's time to go for a time period to connection and for a time period to clarity, because that could end up being a blind spot if they don't. So we have to be able to tilt intentionally no matter what the team's objectives are. So the way we work with clients is we say the way to produce this kind of psychological safety in the environment is to learn the framework, learn the way it works, use the diagnostics. Over time, people love the culture so much that they would never want to work in another culture without it. And what ends up happening is you end up with one leader in a team who is working on, building this kind of climate, and it begins to spread throughout the organization. So what we usually say is pick your, 10 to 12 most influential teams. Let's work with those, and eventually we'll get an exponential effect, a tipping point, if you will, and the company culture is eventually affected. Team climate, as distinct from company culture, is an important distinction, because team climate is something that changes fast, and culture is more typically stable over time for some various reasons that we teach. But so if you want to actually make a shift in culture and you want to do it more rapidly, to respond to what's happening in the external environment, then you want to pick your most influential teams and work with those teams first, and then see the effect. And it eventually produces an effect even outside of the company, as you see here. So just a couple of comments about the benefits of intentional tilting. It creates a no surprises psychological safety climate and culture. And so this is really nice to work in. And we say we help companies build a culture where people love to work. And this is why, because they're not caught up in a lot of office politics all the time. They're really clear about why we're tilting intentionally, and for how long we're tilting intentionally, and why, and it really helps them to be able to predict behaviors in a better way. And then lastly, it is a way of building the agility in a number of sets of patterns that people can shift to and move out of their natural tilt and into specific tilts that get great outcomes. And when you do this, you end up with a very agile team that can produce that generativity that we are all after. So thank you for listening, and we hope to talk to you soon.